What's up? Welcome. I am so glad you are here listening and spending time with me today. Release Your Inner Power talks about life, the trenches, the decisions, and the wins that we have now, today, and that have experienced in our past. There are stories, encouragement, tools, and tips to take those next steps to release that inner power and connect with something that is said or someone, a special guest maybe, that will boost your week. I am your host, Shauna B. Here we go. Welcome back to Release Your Inner Power podcast. I have a guest that has been on before, and she's returning because we are going to have a different kind of conversation today. Both of us have experienced toxic relationship, and we want to share our story of our journey from when we recognized it all the way through to leaving and where we are at today. And it's going to just be us sharing our stories back and forth, and hopefully we'll be able to give some, support and tools for other people that have also been through the same type of situation. So welcome, Trish, back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me back. I cannot wait to have this conversation. I know the last time we recorded, we had a sad conversation, and we should have hit record then because it was so good, but I have no doubt that this is going to be just as good.
Yeah, that was fun. We were like, what are we doing? We need to record this.
Yeah.
Like, this is a conversation that needs to be had. Like, this is the struggle. This is a trench. This is a thing that people go through. And it's like, you need to know that there's other people that also have done it and doing it. And it's hard. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But you're perfectly able to, get through it. Well, let's see. So my journey started, what year is this?
We're 24. Yay.
I know. I'm like, wait, it's like mixed 2023, 2024, right in the beginning.
Mhm.
Let's see. My journey started, I would say 2017 or 2016. I was in a relationship. I was married and I was married in 2013, and I would say and I was divorced in 2018. And I would say I noticed little things along the way, but what my pattern was I could see in my partner what they could be, like what their
Potential.
yeah, like how amazing of a man he could be.
Mhm.
And all of the things I could see that, but I didn't realize that he did not see that for himself. I had no idea. And so when little things would happen that would be, weird, like gaslighting or like super toxic, I would push it aside and make an excuse. Like, that's not really what he meant because I can see this. And I kept holding on to this person that he was not acting as.
Yeah.
And that he wasn't seeing. And I just kept holding on to that, like, oh, that's going to come out because it's in there. Like, I just believed that it would come out because it was in there. And so I made tons of excuses for him. And because I loved him and he was my person. And that's, we had kids together and we were making this life. And it was kind of like, it's weird because you're like in a fog. You're like in this fog that you can't see. And sometimes people around you can see things and they're like, that's concerning. And you're like, oh, but you don't understand, because blah, blah,
You
blah.
don't see it.
Yeah. Like excuse. And it's like, it's so funny because it's not funny, but it's funny because when you look back, once you're through it, you're like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
And you can't even explain it because it's almost like you're in this weird trance, if you will, because your belief wants to be this good person and this person that's inside of them that you can see that they're capable of being, but that's not actually the reality of the situation.
And you want to stick there. You want to stick it out and,
Mm-hmm.
support them in becoming this person. You can see that they're becoming this person, and that's their potential. That's who they could be. But you ignore all the red flags along the way. And it's so subtle The pieces are so subtle that you don't even recognize it's happening. So you're like, okay, we've got the kids. Let's try this again. Like, I'm gonna forgive you for that. Let's keep going. I know you have this in you. Like, you want it so badly that you ignore a lot of the other pieces,
Yeah. Well, and you're in it. Like
and
you're
you're in it.
already in it. You're married, you're in it, you're doing the thing. So you're like, marriage is not all rainbows and sunshine and glitter. So, this is what you got to work at. And this is what, you're like finding all the things that you have to work at.
Yeah.
And
I mean, essentially, it's no different than when I talk with my clients, and a lot of my content, it's you can be so close to the problem, you don't see the problem. And that's the exact same thing. You are so close to the problem, you are in and a part of essentially the problem that you don't see it.
Mhm.
You just keep looking for the bright side and to keep going. And empaths, you get suckered in even more and more and more. And you want to make things work and you want to find the good. And my story is the exact same.
Tell me
I
about your beginning of your story, how it started.
so my red flag started right in the beginning, and I should have paid attention and recognized them along the way. But I saw potential. And then after child number one, even things started progressively getting worse. And then child number two came along and it started getting worse. And then, I wanted to grow my business. Well, my business is a hobby. And then I wanted to do something else. Well, nothing was ever good enough. Even working full time, it was never enough. It was never good enough, or whatever he had going on. I had to drop my full time job to rush home because he had something else going on. Then child three, and she was my daughter. She's the one who did it for me because I'm like, I don't want her to be raised thinking that this is acceptable. So
And
even
it's
after,
so interesting that you say that because my third child is my daughter also.
and after, it was still 6 years that it took after having her, but it's progressively got worse and worse and worse. And I started recognizing the pieces, but I started doing the work on myself
Hmm.
before I could actually take that step to leave, because you're not only in, this toxic relationship, you're in this narcissistic cycle. So after being in it for so long, you're out of, like, even being out of it a year, I catch myself self going back into fight or flight.
Hmm.
And I'm catching it, but it's an automatic response still that's still programmed within my body. So I did the work, a couple years even before I made that final decision. Yes, I'm ready to do this.
Hmm.
Because if I didn't, I wouldn't be here. I would have gone back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not even like because I wanted to, because my body was programmed, my brain was programmed to think that, this is healthy, but
Hmm.
I knew it wasn't healthy, right?
Yeah.
It's a hard situation to walk away from, especially when there's three kids
Hmm.
and everyone wants to keep their family together. But reality is, if it's not healthy for you, it's not healthy for them.
Yeah. But like all parties involved, even the one that can't see what the problem actually is.
Yeah.
I know it's interesting because you say that, you had to do a lot of work and there was a lot of things that you did prior to even leaving. And it's so crazy because that's a thing. Like when you're in this cycle and there was times where I was like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna have the conversation. I'm doing this. Like I'm leaving, we're separating, like this isn't working, you know. But then I would talk myself out of it because either something happened that was really good. And so I was like, oh, I'm holding on to this hope of this one teeny little like flame thing where I'm just like, okay, this might be the spark, this might be the thing, this might be, basically like let him see, what is going on. And I had so much hope and expectation for my own self and like what I wanted. Like I wanted the family to be together. Like I came from a divorced family
Yeah.
and two separate homes. and my situation had added things to it, but like I didn't like going to that. I didn't like going to the separate places, or if somebody wasn't consistent, or just like it being hard. And I just didn't want my kids to experience the same thing as me. And
Yep.
so I wanted to really work as hard as I possibly could for this like marriage to work and for me to stay. Like I did not want to get a divorce. And so part of it was me being stubborn in the fact where it was like that was not an option. So how do I figure out how this is going to work with us? And girl, let me tell you, I was exhausted.
Yep.
I was exhausted, like jumping through this hoop. Okay, having a conversation. Okay, so this is a problem. So how can we solve it together as a family? Blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, we're trying to work with him. And then it's like, okay, so now this hoop is made over here. So now I'm jumping through this hoop, but then he gets mad at me because I'm not jumping through the other hoop that we just left.
Yeah.
I'm like, what what is happening here? What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to do this hoop or that hoop? Like you said this one was going to make us happy as a family. We're doing that and it's not doing that. So now what? Now I got to go back to this over here. And I just felt like you said, like
Walking on
what Sam did was
eggshells.
right. Yeah. You're just doing backflips and cartwheels and all kinds of
Yep.
shenanigans. And it's like, you just want to be like to the point where you're like, what is actually going to make you happy? Can you tell me that?
Yep.
Because I don't know. I don't know. And I'm supposed to be the closest person to you. And I can't tell you anything. So do you even know what is happening here? Right.
That's
Even
the thing.
after
They
like,
don't.
no,
They
no,
really
I
don't
cannot tell
know.
you. It's like, it's almost like they're lost trying to find themselves and they have to do it through other people for some weird reason. Like that's how they're like thinking they're finding themselves is through other people. And it's, they have the inability to reflect and look at themselves. It's
Mhm.
always like the finger is out, pointing away.
Always.
And because you're the wife or the partner or the whatever, it's
You're
like,
the
it's
first one
you.
it
You
goes
are
to.
the can. You're the scapegoat. You're the person that gets all the things.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what? Hey there, do you need some more tools to help boost your week? I got you. I got you. Head on over to www.igniteddecisions.com and there is 4 different resources that you can use to help clear your mind, get things done, checking in, 10 ways to better your day, and to be able to plan more me time. Yes, plan more me time. Head on over to www.igniteddecisions.com to get your freebies today to help boost your week.
And it's mentally and emotionally exhausting trying to constantly figure out, what you're supposed to do to keep them happy, but then, that's never enough. And
Yeah, I think for me, like when my like awakening, I guess you could say, was for a long time. I can't even tell you. I mean, I feel like for a long time I was like, you don't understand because they weren't like in the marriage, right? To other people that would be like, hey, is this okay? Are you okay? Like I've noticed that you're changing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not changing. Like I was in total denial. Like I'm not changing. I'm the same person. What have you. And they're like, no, you're not. You're not the same person. Like you would not have responded that way or done that before. And now you're doing that. Like you don't see that. And just them saying that though was enough seed for me to, at the time I like dismissed it. But it was
yeah,
enough for me to, like you said, I was like, I need to work on myself because I started feeling really shitty. Like I started feeling
yeah,
bad about myself. I started feeling like I was not good enough. I didn't hack it. Maybe I can't do this marriage thing because I'm not the one. Like I am not good enough for him. I don't know if I can do this. Like I was questioning all this stuff, which was not me. And then when other people were like, what's happening here? I'm like, wait, pump the brakes. Like, hold on a
yeah.
second. I need to really evaluate this. So I started doing more internal work and meeting. I met with a couple of people and working on some things and like, how can I be a better person? How can I be my best self? And in that, like I say, my awakening or the fog was lifted and I was like, holy shoot. Like, and then looking back, it's like, whoa, the amount of things that you can see that have happened that are not okay and that I was allowing to happen, which made them okay. Because it's like it's not like I'm completely
Exactly.
innocent, right?
Yeah.
You're not completely innocent because it's almost like you're enabling it
Yeah.
without even
And you allow
realizing
it.
you're enabling it.
Yeah. I will say things now, and my boyfriend's like, but you allowed it. You allowed it to happen. You allowed it to continue to happen. You didn't put your foot down. And now that you're starting to put your foot down, everyone's pushing back.
Yeah.
Like, shut up. Just shut up. Stop being right. And
Yeah.
but it's it.
Yeah.
But when you're in it, you don't see it and you don't see that you're allowing it. And that's it. The self-discovery work, and you can go in and like it's endless when you start to see that, hey, I'm not the problem here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then what do you do about it?
Mm-hmm.
For me, my out was September, or when was it? I don't know. The years are all blended together. Anyways, it was the August-ish before I actually decided to leave. I believe it was the August. And there was a massive argument, and things were said to me. We can get pretty vulnerable right now if that's okay. I was told that the sooner my son hates me, the oldest, hates me, the better. I was told to do him and the kids a favor and kill myself. And that was it. I'm like, I'm not gonna be with someone who I don't care how much you've had to drink.
Mm-hmm.
It's not acceptable. It's not an acceptable way to talk to someone, especially your wife, whom you're supposed to love.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my turning point, and it's like my emotions cut off,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I
and
can
then by
feel
December, I
like
was like,
with you telling me that, I can feel like I was there, right? Because things like like when the person that's supposed to be holding their heart in your hands and protecting you and like being the one person that's not allowing anybody else to hurt you hurts you the most, it's literally just like putting it in a blender.
yeah,
And then you're standing there like, what are you doing
yeah,
with that? Stop doing that. Yeah. Yeah. I I think that when I had the realizations that things were off and wrong, when you said, my emotions cut off, that also
mhm,
that totally happened to me. I remember being to a point where he wouldn't even be in the same room with me anymore. Like he had his own room now. He was like basically like we were roommates. Like we weren't even it wasn't even a thing because my emotions completely cut off because I
yeah,
was trying to figure out how to do it. And my worry was I was still hanging on to that picture of expectation of like my family can't get divorced and my family, whatever, like we have to stay together and all this. And then I kind of like slapped myself around a little bit. And I'm like, really? Because this is such a happy family picture right now. When it's not, it's awful. It's like
it's
this
the
would never
picture of what you want things to be and what you know there is the potential of to be,
yeah.
but the reality is that's not what it is. And
Yeah.
that's when you have to make the hard decisions. And I mean, I think in the end, anyone who makes those decisions are 100% better off.
Yeah.
There's just still so many entitled men out there who, think that that's how things get to go and how things get to continually go. And it's not a supportive environment for anyone. I'm trying to say this nicely. Um,
Yeah.
but it's not a supportive environment for anyone. And I've worked with so many women who have been in the same situations, and that's where we really connect. And you're like, there's that deeper understanding of what they're going through.
Hmm.
And it's incredible how many women are actually experiencing the same things.
Yeah. And it's also interesting to me too, because you have the expectation of what you wanted, right? But then you also have to go through this whole the word I want to say, it's not really appropriate, but this whole mind playing thing, I'll say
Yeah.
that, of with yourself, because one, you're like, am I doing everything I can to actually, fight for this to make sure? Because as a human, I feel like you want to do the right thing. You want to do what's best, especially if you have a family. It's not just you anymore. There's others involved, right? So it's like, I needed to make sure that what I was doing was best for the kids. And so I started to, after my emotion shut off, I started to just kind of step back and watch things that were happening and taking note of, is this really a good thing? What is this reality of it? And then like stop fighting with myself in my head of me not being strong enough for whatever this relationship was,
Yeah.
and like giving myself grace that I've been doing gymnastics and jumping through hoops and stuff, and I've been doing all the things. And maybe it's not good enough for someone else, but it was good enough for me. And if we're not on the same playing field, then maybe this isn't working out. And I went away for a weekend. It was like can't remember what they actually called it, but it was basically like an in-person workshop, and there was 12 of us. And we went away to do like some big time internal moves, internal work, doing some things. And on that trip, like I think it was my second day in, I had like fully made the decision, that this was what I was going to do. But then I had to figure out, how can I do it, right? I wanted to do it the least traumatizing way possible for my family. And so I had to figure it out, how I was going to present this, how I was going to ask for this, and, all of that, because I didn't want my kids to have this, big grandiose ending, what have you, to where they would be traumatized. And it's funny because I thought about it for a long time, and I had the conversation with him, and he actually agreed that we should separate. He was like, yes, I think that we should separate. I don't feel like there's really anything here, blah, 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 whatever. I don't really remember what his responses were, to be totally honest, because I had practiced pitching. As soon as what he would say, it would just go right out, because I didn't need it. If it wasn't kind to me, I didn't need it. So I had practiced pitching like, and then it was gone. And it's funny because it was 2 months later when here I am trying to protect my family and do it. And it was taking time, but I was doing it this whole way. And then a whole incident happened. Like you said, like there was a whole big fight, a whole big incident happened that included my child, my oldest. And it was like that night I was like, no, right here, I'm done. Get like out, get out. Like, this is it. I don't like, I'm done. I don't care. This is it. I'm out, blah, blah, blah. And it's funny because I it was like, I wonder how long it would have went with me trying to be nice to my kids instead of just ripping the freaking Band-Aid off and doing it. You know what I mean? Like and I think that's why I held on for so long before I even actually did it, was like, I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to hurt them. Like, it wasn't even about me or him. It was about them, and like how I can protect them, how I can keep them, I don't know, like, I don't want to, like, as a parent, you don't want to damage your kid. You don't want to have all this trauma that they have to work through as an adult. So I'm like trying to figure out how to do that. And eventually I had to rip the freaking Band-Aid off anyway.
Yeah.
It was like, why didn't I do that? But, whatever. It still happened. But it's funny because once he left, there was two things that happened. One, I had to really face this expectation of this family thing that I was really having a hard time letting go. Like, it was crushing me. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it wasn't even about like, I've had a failed marriage. It was just like, I just wanted my kids. I just wanted to be one unit. And that just wasn't the thing. So I had to freaking mourn that.
Yep. It's a
Mourn that.
loss, right? You're still grieving. So I saw a therapist after I left, and she said, like, it's like, it's a death. You're
Yeah.
going to grieve this as a death. This was 16 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And like she said, she's like, take the time. And then not only on top of, that, the mourning and the grief, my body was coming out of fight or flight. My nervous system was trying to reset, and it's exhausted. That alone is exhausting. I was like sleeping so much, and then the pressure of everything else on top, getting my business back up and running and bringing all of the pieces together. It hits you like, wow, you're like, oh shit, I got all this responsibility now.
Mhm.
Plus, I'm gonna cry a lot. Plus, my body's exhausted from, walking on eggshells all the time and being in fight or flight, like survival mode. It gets to finally relax.
Mhm. Yeah, that's the second thing, right? I came home from work one night. It was probably a few months after I had been living alone with the kids. And I came home and I was like, I remember it was like palpable. Like I walked up the stairs and I was like, whoa, like I
Mhm.
can just do what I want. Like
Yeah.
if I don't want to make my lunch, I don't have to. If I want to stay up for 2 hours, like it was so weird. It was like everything was like all the eggshells were gone.
Yeah.
All the eggshells were gone. There was like a huge weight lifted off of my shoulders. And it was just like a big sigh,
Yeah.
you know? And I was like, whoa, this right here, I'm gonna hold on to this. I remember thinking, I want to hold on to this. I just sat there for a minute and I was like, okay, noted.
Yeah.
I got it, and then it was like that was to me was the point of all the dust settling, if you will, from all the, leaving and the stuff moving out and the
Mhm.
new schedule and the blah blah blah. That was like the dust settling. And then it was kind of like I took that time to like give my permission to now I can put the pieces back together however I want them to go.
Exactly. It gets to be whatever you want to create. And that feeling is something that's just, it's all on you.
It's hard to describe. It's hard to
It,
describe it because
yeah.
until you feel it, but the process to get there of like you said, like the morning and the grieving of it. And then, like, you're literally walking in the middle of a tornado for a while because you're
Yeah.
not really sure what is going on. Because the norm, like you said, was fight or flight. Like, you're always constantly doing something to not upset the home, to not
Mhm.
get, not, okay, let's not do this because then it's going to upset. And let's now I have to do this. Like, you're just jumping around trying to not upset. So there's no fighting and there's no, you're patching all the things, you're trying to fix
Yeah.
all the things.
Well, like for me, it was, all the work, we'll call it pre-work if you will, before leaving on myself was literally starting once I left, it was a fresh start and starting all of that work all over again because
Right.
now, it's a new identity, it's a new everything. Like you're not the same person you were. Everything is different. And prior to, you've lost who you are. So
Yeah.
now, who is it that you want to be?
Yeah.
And you get to become that person
Yeah.
and go through all the self-work again.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I like that you said that you lost yourself because it's so true. Like when we were talking about, you know, when people were saying like what's up with you, you're not responding in a normal way or you're not doing that's not you. Like I'm confused on like what's going on. When people started saying that like that, I think that was truly when I started to notice that I did lose myself. And then, right, like you do the self-work almost to get strong enough to leave. And then when you do leave, it's like you have to find yourself again, but it can be fun in a way of finding yourself of what you want. Like there's not a lot of you feel like you're in this box with all these boundaries almost like caged right before.
Yeah.
And then once you free yourself from that, you're like, "Wait, I have all this I can do this and I can do that and I can do this." And then you're like, "Oh, I can." But you have to convince yourself and give yourself
That
permission
it's
to do it.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to convince yourself that's okay. You're like, oh, I don't feel like cleaning the floors right now. Wait a second. I don't have to.
Yes. Yes, this does not
Yeah.
have to happen. And then you're like, woo, like I don't know, there's fun in finding it's like, because I know sometimes when you say like find yourself, people are like, oh, really? Like that is so hard. It's
Yeah.
so much work. It's so, but at the same time, you can totally have fun with it and just try things. Like I remember when I first did, like one of my friends was like, you're crazy. And I was like, why do you say that? Because I'd go on to like Groupon or like these places where they would have like coupons to try these new activities or new things. And then I'd go to their website and see like what they offer. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I'd like paddle boarding, but I'm going to try it. So then I would just
Yeah.
go like, on time by myself and I would go try paddle boarding and see if I liked it. And if I did, great, I'd keep doing it. And if I didn't, whatever. And I just
Yeah.
kept doing all this stuff because it was like, what haven't I done? What haven't I experienced, or maybe there's things out here that I don't even know that I like that I could like, just because I was so focused on fixing my marriage and fixing this, and this is going to work, and I'm going to, make my kids okay, and everything's going to be fine because I'm going to do all the fixing and whatever. I put way too much on myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah. And it's exhausting. It's mentally exhausting because you're constantly thinking of how can you fix things, and most of the time you can't because there's nothing to fix. They don't want to fix anything. So no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, it's never going to be enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I started recognizing that. And that was I mean, there's patterns. There's patterns to everything that happens. There's patterns to everything we do. And it's recognizing the pattern and deciding which patterns, hey, I'm done repeating.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know. That's it. It's interesting once you like start finding yourself and start finding things that are about you, and then like reconnecting and remembering, and coming up with things that where you're like, oh, this is me, this is what I love, this is what I
Mhm.
like, this is what I want to do. But then like when those pieces come up, because I have children,
Yeah.
that person is not gone from my life.
Yeah.
And so you have to figure out a way to co-parent with this person in the future, right? I know.
Yeah.
I know you're like co-parent. That's funny. So I agree.
Yeah.
But it's in a way of you literally have to separate completely of like, what am I okay as far as like for you? Like, what am I okay? Like, as far as communication, anything like, do I even talk to this person? Is it only an email? Do I even text them? Do I have another person I communicate that my children go? Like, I mean, it's all of the things that you have to do in order for this to work because your kids are still in there, right? Your kids are
Yeah.
still in it. And you have to do what's most healthy because your kids want to see you happy, healthy, and moving on, and not constantly turmoil. If they're seeing constant turmoil, they're learning that that's what a relationship is. And then you're just
Yeah.
passing the baton onto
Yeah.
your kids.
And for me, it's low to no communication
Yeah, that's me too.
because there's no respect. There's no anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I had to, there's a few things that I had to do. I had to minimize my communication. And then my responses are like really super short sentences or yes or no answers. That is it. And then if tangents start happening, because they do,
Yep.
I just don't respond anymore. I don't do anything if it's not specific to like visitation or something about school or their sport, that it doesn't need my response. It has nothing to do with them. It doesn't
Yeah.
need any of that. So you have to like practice, like you already had to practice boundaries, and then they got broken down, and then you're building them back up. But then now you have to like enforce them on a different level. But I feel like it's more empowering now because you have your space to go to. You have your space to be. You have your tribe, your people, things like that support, and you have your way of how you have made it. And away from that, like the saying they say, other people's opinions are none of your business. It's like that. Like, okay, great. Think whatever you want about me, and you have to like know that's that and none of my business. And I know me. And that's all
Yeah.
that's important. And then enforcing the
Exactly.
boundaries of what you've created so you can keep keep the flow of your life and what you're doing and like keep staying that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's for me, I got stuck in the loop of trying to understand why he was thinking this, trying to understand why he was saying that, try to understand why, like maybe if I find out the reason, I'll understand his like perspective, because I'm the kind of a person that wants to understand perspective of all parties involved and be like, oh, I totally understand why they're looking at it like that, and
Yeah.
just being empathetic to all parties involved. With this particular relationship style, that is not an option.
Oh.
There
So
is, you will not understand it.
no, because they don't understand it.
No, they don't even see it. They don't see anything. They don't see what they're doing. They don't see what they're doing.
No.
It's crazy. I mean, sometimes I'll just sit there and be like, wow, I I almost feel like in my situation, I actually feel for him because he's in so much turmoil and battle with himself because he's so lost on what he's doing that that's sad to me because I that is an awful place to be.
Yeah.
That is if I could put myself in like shoes, if you will,
Yeah.
of that is a that is just, it seems painful. It seems sad. It seems like all of the things. And I don't know, maybe he has no idea and that's just how I perceive it. And maybe it's just all bliss and whatever. I don't know. I don't need to know. But from me just looking in on the situation, if if you're struggling and constantly changing things and like it just seems like being a lost soul is just not, that is just sad. That's
It's
sad. And
chaotic.
yeah, I can't even imagine what that feels like.
It's
But
chaotic. It's dramatic. I mean, my ex loved and still does love the drama.
hmm
They thrive off of it. And you don't need it. Like there's no trying to understand because they don't want you to understand because they don't understand. And no matter what, they're like instead of being happy and present in the now, it's what's next, what's next, what's next, what's more, what's more, what's more, because it's never enough.
hmm
So I have I'm a very empathetic person and I have no empathy because I gave so many chances. And I
Yeah.
said, "Oh, this is how I'm feeling,"
Yeah.
and just turn around on me. And the
Yeah.
gaslighting. And then like as I was going through it, I was learning all of the different terms and all of the different pieces and the cycle, right? So I'm
Yeah.
like, I was just about to say some words that are probably not appropriate for a podcast. I'm like, I see what you're doing now, and I can recognize it. And I'm like, bye, like just a little flick, because I'm not, once you can recognize it, you don't put up with it and you let it roll off your shoulder. It doesn't bug you anymore. It's not a big deal.
hmm
Whereas before, it would have been a big deal because these are my feelings and they're valid.
Right.
But they're never going to understand or validate your feelings because they really don't give a shit.
Yeah. Yes. Even if they tell you that they do, they
Yeah.
don't. I know. I think of it as I think of it as like flexing a muscle. So like before you leave, you're like flexing this muscle and like kind of like working out your mind, if you will, on like becoming stronger for yourself, seeing the things, recognizing the patterns, and you're like, that's not okay, that's not okay, that's not okay. And then you like come, like then it's kind of like the new level. It's like the new, okay, so now what? Now you have to make a decision and then you do it all over again. Like, okay, now I'm going back, to the mind gym and I'm working through all of this stuff of actually leaving and actually doing the thing. And then now, like, you trudging through the mud or going through the storm, there's always, sunshine, rainbows on the other side. You just don't know what that is, when it's coming, or what it's going to look like, but you are in control of when and how fast that is going to be with you by the
Yeah.
decisions that you make.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how much you need to flex the muscle, like you said. Once you get that in tune and you work with that and you recognize it, it is just a flick. It is just a flick, but you have to make the decision to do it.
Yeah.
You
And
have
a
to
lot of it,
do the
like for
work.
anyone who's listening who is, maybe in a similar situation, any of these little pieces are resonating and you're like, you're starting to question things right now. It all comes down to your personal power
Mhm.
and not letting outside people make the decisions for you. And ultimately, you get to decide. And it's a hard piece to pull back because you're so used to, everything being decided for you and going with the flow because it's just an easier option saying, no, this isn't what I want, and actually starting to stand up for yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the biggest piece for me was having those realizations, making the decision. But what really drove it for me was I am not going to have my kids think that this is how a relationship is supposed to be because my sons are not going to do this to somebody else. And my daughter is not going to think that
It's
this is who you're
acceptable.
supposed to be with or this is how it's supposed to be. And so that really drove home for me because they will repeat your patterns. If you don't break them
Yep.
as the parent, they will
Yep.
repeat them. And
And for
so,
me, it's a generational pattern that I'm breaking. So it's one
right,
that's, it's even harder because you watched it growing up. It's you've been conditioned to think that, hey, this is okay, this is acceptable. This is what, generations of my family went through.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it ends with me because my daughter is not going to be repeating that same pattern. Not going to let it happen. She's going to learn one to stand up for herself right from the beginning. And that was one of the pieces too, because he would get mad at her or say something to her. And I'm like, and she'd flip him off. And then she'd get in trouble. I'm like, the kid's sticking up for herself. Like at 5 years old, that's all she knows how to do right now. And you're not going to bully that out of her. I want her to stick up for herself and be that girl that doesn't take shit from anyone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's funny that you say that because that's also one of my things that I do with my kiddo is um she's very she has a voice and she knows she has a voice. And so I have to be very strategic on how she uses it. So now I'm
Yeah.
teaching her how to use it. And, like if she does stick up for herself or if she says, I don't like that, I'll say, thank you for telling me because now I understand, thank you for telling me. Now I understand that you don't like it. And then if it's like super, like with all the head movements and the super fast or whatever, I'll be like, can you just tell me you don't like it next time though, with like less head movement? Then
Less
I'll receive
attitude.
it. I'll hear it louder without the,
Yeah.
movements or whatever. So I try to like guide her to like appropriately. And I know it's probably her age too, but planting the seed of maybe how to deliver it because, delivery is like super key. That's when people are going to hear you the most, right? So working with that is definitely it's funny. Like it's not funny in the moment, but then it's
Yeah.
funny later when you like,
Yeah.
yeah, she did that. Okay.
Yeah. I know she'll do something and I'll have to, give her shit. And I'm like dying inside laughing because it's the cutest thing, but I'm like, it's not acceptable. She's got to learn.
Yeah, yeah. Like guide him appropriately.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I do want to say to the listeners that if you have a story to share or you feel really alone or you feel stuck or you feel, like you don't know what's going on or feel like a crazy person in your relationship because I know I did. I felt like a friggin' crazy person. Reach out to Trish or I, share your story, chat with us. We would love to chat with you. We both have been through it. I mean, what we've talked about today is, a fraction of what we could say. I mean, I'm sure me and Trish could talk about this for a while. But we felt that it was important to share because, we go through things and hard things and they need to be shared and talked about, so you're not alone and you can be heard and share your story. So please reach out to us. All of our information will be in the show notes so you guys can um, share your stories. Do you have anything else, Trish, that you want to add?
Not that I can think of. Um, toxicity is toxicity. It's not you, it's the environment. And if you're struggling to grow personally, it could be that environment. And, it might be hard to see, but there are going to be little signs and patterns. And, if you're just feeling like a nut job, it's probably not you.
Hmm.
And yeah, reach out to either one of us. I'm always open to have those conversations because I know how much my life was affected.
Yeah.
And, since making that decision to leave, how much better my life has been. And even though it was a hard decision, and I'm not saying for everyone to leave their significant other, but at the same time, you have to do what's best for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes just having those conversations can give you the confidence or the courage or that pep talk that you need to make those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Do what's best for you. If that
Yep.
is to stay or if that is to leave, do what's best for you.
I mean, it could be to stay, but you need to have one hell of a serious conversation and set your boundaries and, share where you stand. I did that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing changed. So, I am where I am.
Right. Right. Taking the steps, right? Taking the steps that you're okay with to do what you need to do in
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on with me today and sharing your story and
Thank you for
chatting with
having
me
me.
about this. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, learned something new, or got some gems to take away that will boost your week. I release a new episode each week, so make sure to click that follow button to not miss what is coming next. If you love the show or want to share a story, send me a quick message. I love hearing from listeners. If you know someone who needs this episode in their life, go ahead and share it with them. I'm sure they would love you for it. If you are looking to connect more, check out the show notes for all the social links, my website. I would love to hear how this episode helped you and what you loved about it. If there's a topic you want to hear about, send that too. All right, ladies, now is the time to release your inner power.